Alright, so let's give this a try. I'm Zartimus, and earlier today I saw the Final Fantasy XIV letter from the producer stream. And for one, it was in full Japanese, so unless you were watching our very helpful translator at twitch.tv/ReinhardtV, you probably didn't really have an idea of what was going on. That aside, I'm not sure if everyone quite got the full scale of what was going on, so I'm going to just run down this list of the points that were brought up and get this into a video on YouTube so that people who didn't have a chance to see the stream or don't feel like going through that massive log that Reinhardt wrote, while I really appreciate it, it might just be nice to be able to hear all this and understand what's going on in just a nice little video. So, taking it from the top, the stream started off with Yoshi P showing off some of the fishing that will be ready in Phase 4. Fishing actually looked really interesting this time around. There's going to be a decent bit going on with it, but according to him, none of it will affect the economy. There's going to be lots of different baits that will have use in the various places you'll be fishing, such as lakes, rivers, oceans. Rivers will use lure fishing, for example, and unknown fishing spots that you haven't been to before will have bait warnings if you're using the wrong bait. So it should be this kind of trial and error thing, so much as let's explore and try out different things. There's also going to be a skill for live bait, where you can fish up a fish and then use that for bait as the next fish, so that should be interesting. Beyond the usual water-based places, there will actually also be desert and sky fishing, and sky fishing will be, probably, as he said, actual flying fish, and that should be pretty interesting. There will also be the ability to fish up treasure maps, so there's the incentive for people that normally wouldn't sit around and just kind of pluck up fish that don't really do as much. So that's going to be how fishing is going to be dealt with, and that's going to be in Phase 4, the open beta. Beyond that, the open beta's date has actually finally been announced. The open beta for Final Fantasy XIV will be taking place from August 17th to August 19th. That's about, 2 days. It's a weekend coming up pretty soon. Sort of sad, but we are getting early access and the release later this month, so that's probably alright. The thing is, if you've participated in the closed beta up to Phase 3, you will also be allowed into the open beta from the 16th, giving you 3 days of playtime in the open beta. So that should be fascinating. Early access is being confirmed for August 24th, so you'll have about 5 days between the close of open beta and the opening of early access if you've pre-ordered to play Final Fantasy XIV. The open beta level cap will be level 20, sadly, so it doesn't look like we'll be able to unlock any jobs. We'll mostly be trawling around with the classes, seeing what we actually like, which is both good and bad in its own ways. The reason that we're being capped at level 20 is because it's being treated as a demo version. We'll be able to play it as if it was the official version. It'll have all of the features and little his and hers that we'd be expecting more than likely. It's just the level cap that's really going to hamper us there, it seems like. Game data will indeed be transferred from the open beta to early access to the actual game itself. The only case this won't happen, he said, is if there is some kind of bug that allows players to amass mass amounts of gil, and that is what will cause a wipe or fix if it needs to happen. Beyond that, the reason for open beta is the things he wants us to test mostly, would be the graphic stress in the housing area for one, because everything in the housing area can be changed, like roofs and walls. All of that is customizable, and that's supposed to be putting on a lot of graphic stress. He wants the players to go in and test that. Limassol Labinsa housing will be open, but you can't go inside. He does, however, encourage the players, go about, climb on the roofs, and explore the area, get a good look at it. So that should be interesting. Linnasea area will also be open. And for the people that have been waiting on this, Coliseum and Frontline PvP are being prepared. I believe the Coliseum will be in the open beta, but that's in a section later. There's something called Wolves Jail prepared by the Grand Company. I have no idea what that is, but he did mention it at least twice during the stream, so that should be interesting. He does want players during the open beta to hit each other. It's part of the things that he wants us to test in open beta, because he needs to get some distance checks done for PvP, so that's something he wants to do. There will not be any PvP-specific actions in the open beta yet, like actions when you're put to sleep or debilitating statuses to counter those. Supposedly, those will be coming along with some gear that helps along with that in the final release. So PvP is indeed being looked at very heavily, and open beta will be our first touch with it, and to give them ideas on what needs to be done with it. They have an actual island for PvP, but again, that's going to be touched on later. Also, Arcanist has been confirmed for Phase 4, the class Arcanist that everyone has been looking towards. He actually did a live demo of Arcanist showing off Carbuncle in both of its forms, the first one, the blue Carbuncle, being a ranged magical attacker. Arcanist itself is DPS that has a healing spell that's supposed to be meant for the pet, so that you can keep your pet up as you go about an adventure. There is apparently a custom hotbar for Arcanist with a bar for the pet. The pet bar can't be customized, but it shows the actions. There's a return action that sends the pet back, there's a move action for it to make sure it moves, a position, a move to make sure it holds position, and there is also a button that allows you to ground target where you want Carbuncle to move in case of specific situations. There's also a passive setting, a peace setting, like WoW's pet option to just keep your pet from doing anything, and that's mostly in the event of Black Mage sleeping something and you don't want your pet to wake it up. The NPCs apparently work off of Final Fantasy XII's Gambit system. If you've never played, it basically, the Gambit system from Final Fantasy XII allows you to set up the characters you are not playing actively with a priority list of things they are supposed to do and eventualities. So if, say you get poisoned, you can set a Gambit that if you get poisoned, that party member will cast an Asuna on you, and you'll be all cleared up. So apparently the system for NPCs in Final Fantasy XIV works off of a system like the Gambit system from Final Fantasy XII. Let's see. There's Free Fight, which basically allows the Gambit system to go wild with your pet. It's for general use. Only endgame should really require a better command than the Free Fight command will allow you. So up until you hit the cap, you really shouldn't have to worry about switching that out. Beyond that, the Arcanist's magic attack isn't actually that high. The Arcanist is inherently meant to be in symbiosis with their pet. That's how they're going to obtain their full damage. You're not supposed to be expected to just throw out spells and do all of your damage, and your pet is just some more damage on the side. There are a lot of debuff spells on Arcanist. There is a low damage spell called Ruin. There's an instant cast DOT in bio, damage over time, and Carbuncle also has a knockback. You also get a debuff spread spell called Vane for AoE debuffing that'll just toss all of your debuffs from one enemy outwards. Arcanist players are meant to keep track of these spells and debuffs on mob, apparently. They also get Ether Float from Thaumaturge every 60 seconds, and he expects that to be used every time it's up, so that should be something that Thaumaturge players will be very familiar with when they get their hands on the Arcanists. From the start, Arcanists get Bio and Ruin, but they'll get Carbuncle later, so you won't be working with your pet from the get-go, but you will get it. Gold Carbuncle, the one that we've seen, there's blue and gold. Gold Carbuncle is meant to be the tank Carbuncle pet, with different skills from the magical ranged attacker. There are spells to make your pets, and I'm assuming this goes for Summoner and Scholar as well. There are spells to make them stronger over time as you get up there. Until level 50, the two jobs that Arcanist branches off into, Scholar and Summoner, they both use similar gear, but Scholar uses Mind and Summoner uses Intelligence. So Yoshi P expects that by post 50, a decision should be made between Scholar and Summoner, and in the event that things, you kind of change your mind partway through, there are items to reroll your stat points, so that you don't have to worry about that. Summoner is the offensive job stemming from Arcanist. It has various Eggies, which are basically your summons, that it works in conjunction with. Ifrit and Garuda are attackers. Ifrit's a close-range attacker, and Garuda is your spellcaster long-range aid. Titan, of course, as would be expected, is the tank. Summoners get Shadow Flare as a dot that slows and poisons within range. Miasma Burst for Bio and Miasma. Apparently there's some kind of function where Summon 1 is Garuda and Summon 2 is Titan. I didn't quite get the full gist of that. And as the level cap is released from Open Beta, he has promised that we will encounter more Eggies, so there should be more pets than simply Ifrit, Garuda, and Titan. There will also be attacks that you can release while chasing mobs, and I expect that to be kind of useful, having seen Cactar's move in the benchmark. I expect that to be a very mobile fight, so abilities like that will come in handy across the board. Scholar is going to be a total healer class. Complete and total healer class, apparently. The fairies that Scholar gets are also healing pets to aid the caster's healing, or a buff pet that helps maintain buffs on the party instead of anything else that you would expect from a pet normally. Summoning a pet, of course, takes time, so you can't just swap out your pet with another summon when it gets on low HP, so you can continually have your summon and not worry about HP. Scholar adds buffs along with their healing, unlike White Mage. For example, Stone Skin is a healing shield. It provides a heal, and it also provides a shield that absorbs damage for a period of time. Their Ether Flow heals MP, and there are also certain skills that can only be used in Ether Flow, like an instant cast bonus to buffing and healing within a certain radius that you drop down. So that should be very handy to both White Mages and Scholars. They also have a Resurrect and a small bit of AoE healing. Yoshi P has said, however, that class balance is going to be important, so having one White Mage and one Scholar for 8-player content is something that they see as recommended. And that makes sense in that there are bigger instant cast heals on White Mages. So if you have a Scholar resurrecting someone, the White Mage can make sure they just don't go down immediately after that. As something that he forgot and amended on later on, fairies can also be the target of an AoE heal, so if you throw one on them, the AoE heal will be spread out, and they can just be planted in the center of your party. You toss a heal on them, and they'll heal everyone in the party, apparently. There are alternate payment methods confirmed. There are going to be various prepaid time cards for 30 and 60 days, each with different designs, apparently collectibles. There's also going to be a world transfer service 2 to 3 weeks from launch that will allow you to move up to 8 characters to a single world. So if you have friends on a different world, or you meet someone that you want to hang out with, that shouldn't be a problem at all. They also briefly showed off the smartphone app Libra Eorza, which displays characters, compares gear, shows available gear. Basically, it's a lot like the World of Warcraft Armory, but it's going to be a very extensive database. Since we get it at launch, it should prove to be a lot handier than if it just came in at some later point, when we already had time to scout everything out. It'll show gear exactly from the game, including crest attachment possibility, materia slots, the needed materials if it has to be crafted, the NPCs that can sell it, quests that reward them, and the quest locations. It'll also be linked to Lodestone, so if the item in question drops from a boss, they won't give you the strategy right there, but you can go on the Lodestone and look at other players' strategies for that boss. So that will be very, very handy. They also won't be info masking it at all. It will be released at a later point from launch, so we don't get everything right as soon as we land. But once we do get it, we can look through the database freely. There will be nothing hidden, apparently. And it will be available 1 week after launch for iOS. Android version, unfortunately, is going to have to wait for about a month and 3 weeks. Yoshi P has also addressed some feedback from the forum. Repair costs for items are going to be cheaper near breaking rather than before they're near breaking. That was something that he apologized for. There's going to be a retry battle, or a retry feature for primal battles where people can cheer and talk freely. the teams are considering same server, same account item transfers, but they want to be really careful about this thing, so it's still under consideration. The barber that they've announced for people will be able to change things, including hairstyle, hair color, eye color, face markings, face paint color, and beard. The barber will be coming out in patch 2.1, and he's used that as a chance to encourage people to not spend too much time on character creation. He just wants you to get right into the game, and if you have a problem with your character's appearance, the barber coming will be able to fix that so you can just enjoy the game in the meanwhile. He has confirmed that there will be various seasonal events. They'll be throwing out a lot of those at us, apparently. People have been worried about, they wanted the swimsuit from the summer event that was present before, and that will be available. The summer event will indeed give you a fire-resistant swimsuit, and that'll be available for this summer event. There will also be a Christmas event that they showed a few sketches from, with interesting costumes, like there will be a snowman costume as well as a Santa color costume, red and white stripes and all that, for Christmas. So there's definitely a lot of planning going into the seasonal events. They talked a bit about the dungeons and raids. The hard dungeon available right after launch is going to be the Bahamut Labyrinth, and it's going to explain what happened in things relating to the 7th Umbral era. Essentially how we got here. It's just meant to lay that all bare. So that'll be an interesting experience. Apparently the dungeon itself is meant to split players up at the midpoint. You'll go in with 8 players, but at a midpoint you will need to split the party so that you can completely clear the dungeon, otherwise you won't be able to. There's also things like a damage split mechanic that they implemented, where it's a lot like WoW. If all of the players are grouped up and standing in a certain place, whereas an attack would do 10,000 damage to one person, instead that 10,000 will be split over all 4 people, so that one person won't die, everyone will just take an amount of damage. They're looking into a lot of combat mechanics like that they wanted to use with the original 14, but now they're implementing in A Realm Reborn. The Crystal Tower is going to be 24-player content, but they've deemed it a bit too hard for right now, so it's been knocked back to patch 2.1. When it does release, however, you will be able to use the Duty Finder to help you find the 24 players for that content, so that shouldn't be too much of an issue. There's also some talk about the Primals fights in being too hard, too easy. There's been an extra step included in the Garuda boss fight, for example. They don't want the fight to be too hard, but they want the players to think about not just the fight, but the environment involved in the fight. So that's going to be a thing. The primal fights apparently are getting a lot of attention and being looked at and changed. The tell function in dungeons might be unlocked. That's something that people have wondered and complained about a bit, but they don't want people to be mean to each other. Apparently that's the issue with it. They're considering unlocking it, but for now, at release, the tell function in dungeons will remain locked. There will, however, be an extreme version for primals, in an increasing difficulty order of the basic primal fight at easy, then a hard mode of that fight, and then an extreme mode of that fight. So we will be revisiting primal fights a lot. They've also showed off a couple of the mounts. The biggest reveal they did when they did the show off of a couple of mounts was the unicorn mount reveal. Apparently it is a reward for the White Mage class quest, and it looks really well animated. I really liked how the unicorn was textured, how it moved. It just looked really nice. So I might actually dip into White Mage just long enough to grab that mount at the very least. There will be different animations apparently depending on who's riding it, race and class. Maybe class. I'm not entirely sure on that. Don't quote me on that part. Launch has no need restriction on gear, in that when in dungeons, people have worried about how there's a lot of freedom in rolling need on gear, and that has not quite been addressed. They haven't put a restriction on that, but they do expect legacy characters to be nice and pass stuff to new players. That's a bit worrying. I'm not sure how that's going to go overall with the community, because there are those jerks in the community, but hopefully it'll teach us a little bit of sharing. There was an address to the stat variation between races, and Yoshi P himself has mentioned that at later levels, the stat variation between races becomes extremely slight, and it's nothing really to be worried about. I believe the number I picked up from somewhere was at max, it's a 0.5% difference between stats later on, so it really doesn't matter. You can kind of play whatever race class combination you want. Your race will not make your class completely ineffective. Minions will apparently be getting equipment from high-level fates, minions, and boss clears, so you should keep an eye on your inventory. More ball minions and all that good stuff. Free companies have been talked about a bit. There was a question about wondering what free companies can do. Like, after you're formed and set up, what do free companies do? Well, free companies can gain points from completing quests, and do things like purchasing an ether wheel, which gives the free company players a bonus when it's placed in the company house. There were also various furniture showed off, like a Moogle light stand, a Chocobo stand, Armin clocks, etc. So there's going to be a lot of variation between furniture that should allow you to personalize your housing. Free company housing is not bound to zone, so if your grand company is not in a given zone, that doesn't mean you can't have a house there. However, he apparently has hinted, maybe, at possible monster attacks depending on where your house is set. So that should be very interesting. I believe it was mentioned Cornula might see behemoths, something like that. But that's a little bit of speculation, not entirely clear. There will be harder version difficulties of instances with that drop vanity gear. I'm not sure if the vanity gear is exclusive to them, if that's all they'll drop. All that's been confirmed is that instances will have harder difficulty versions, and that there will be vanity gear. They were mentioned in conjunction. Treasure maps are being prepared now, and when they do come out, they can be played solo or with a light party. The job quests for each variation on jobs, paladin, monk, all that good stuff, can be cleared solo. Artifacts for job-specific gear can be gotten solo, or you can team up with NPCs if you so please to just not interact with people to go get them in a nice little world journey. So you're not reliant on other people to go get your job stuff. That seems very nice. There was a brief talk about the possibility of minions being allowed to roam in your housing. Yoshi's probably going to talk to the teams about that, see if that's a possible thing. Moving on from that, apparently coming in patch 2.1, there will be an option in the duty finder to accept random dungeons, any dungeons, and that has been confirmed to have better rewards when it does get released, more likely over picking a specific dungeon that you want to do. There will also be tokens that can be used to gear if you can't clear certain bosses. If you use the tokens and get the gear will be slightly under the gear you would have from the boss, but it can be used for later content. So if you're having trouble clearing Ifrit, for example, you can go and get some tokens and get some Ifrit-like gear that will allow you to clear beyond him, apparently. Add-on tools are a big thing. Add-on tools have been confirmed for Final Fantasy XIV, and they will be dropping about 6 months after launch. So if you were looking forward to just modding the crap out of Final Fantasy XIV, 6 months is where you should see the tools being released to do what you do best. The Molabe dock leads to the PvP Coliseum in the open beta, where there's a ranking board for PvP, and you can sign up for 4v4s or 8v8s. The Coliseum, apparently, was built on the crater from the meteor strike. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that was in the A Realm Reborn trailers. You take a look at those, they look fantastic, and they'll give you a general idea of what's going on lore-wise. There will be race change items at a later time. However, veteran rewards have been confirmed. The 30-day rewards include a minion that is akin to the old Final Fantasy glove pointer, and the File of Fantasia, which is basically a character remake ticket. You can go from a female human to a male Mikote and all the lot. So those are your 30-day rewards. The 60-day rewards are a cascade Arcadier uniform voucher, which is basically a swimsuit. You'll get a swimsuit. And the black chocobo check. That looked very nice. It still had the egg around the lower half, so I'm looking forward to that. And the 90-day rewards include the Beady Eye Araman minion and the Voidal Resonator. The Voidal Resonator, in fact, looked like an Araman with arms and a tail. It looked like Araman's just got a buff and an upgrade. And that will be a mount. The bonuses are awarded right away upon subscription confirmation, so if you order a 60-day subscription, you'll get your 60-day rewards on the spot and your 30-day rewards. If you order 90-day, you'll get 90, 60, and 30. And all of this just happens as soon as the subscription is confirmed and ticks over. So, big subscriptions will have a whole bunch of fancy stuff at the start. I'm looking forward to taking a look at all of it. I think this is the first time in a while I've been excited for veteran rewards. I can't remember them being so front-loaded before, and that kind of makes me happy. To clean up the live letter from the producer, they announced that on August 21st to 25th, the Gamescom in Germany will have a stage event where Yoshi P will be showing up. They'll also have some demo versions set up for a battle challenge versus Titan, the Primal. Winning it will get you a t-shirt that basically says, "I beat Titan," so that'll probably be some really cool swag, and there's also going to be an autograph session. On August 27th, there will be a Japan release event in the Shibuya Hikari Hall B with a mini letter from the producer live and demo booths. On August 30th, PAX Prime, the big old PAX Prime, will have a stage event with Yoshi P and sound director Soken, a battle challenge, and an autograph session. Oh boy, Steam messages all over the place. And the battle challenge will likely be against... No, the battle challenge is confirmed to be against Titan. I'm not sure if the t-shirt will be awarded there, but I'm pretty sure it will be awarded at PAX Prime as well. That was pretty much everything that was covered in the live letter from the producer. I don't really have many thoughts on this. A lot of what they discussed was pretty straightforward. This is happening here. The few things that they didn't exactly confirm were either to be talked with the team because it was kind of a newly suggested thing, or a thing they were sort of iffy about because they didn't want people to abuse it, or it was just flat out stuff that isn't happening yet, so that it's subject to change. I think that overall, this is a good time to be a Final Fantasy XIV fan, and seeing as open beta is coming really soon, I'm probably getting in on the 16th. I'm looking the heck forward to this. Balmung is hopefully going to be a wonderful server to be on. So, that was your summary for the live letter from the producer with Yoshi P and Foxclod.